never stops. This is 1010 Wins at 92.3 FM. You give us 22 minutes, we'll give you the world.
Good morning. It's 52 degrees. It's 7:40 on this Thursday, October 19th. I'm Scott Stanford. Here's what's happening. President Biden back on American soil. He'll address the nation tonight. We'll carry it live here on 1010 Wins as the president works a deal for Egypt to let humanitarian aid into Gaza. A woman is punched in the face last week in the subway. The attacker said it was because she was Jewish. Police say they know the suspect who pushed a woman on the subway tracks yesterday afternoon. She's in critical condition. Natalie Holloway was killed in Aruba back in 2005. Her family finally gets justice and closure in the case.
We finally reached the end of our never-ending nightmare.
Is there too much Taylor Travis coverage? Are we in Tavis burnout mode? I'll tell you what the survey says. Checking sports, Astros cut the Rangers lead in the ALCS 2-1. The Vegas Aces taking out the Liberty to win the WNBA title. AccuWeather, pretty nice day on tap, partly sunny. High around 64 degrees. Winds News Time 7:41. We get you back out to the roads. Traffic and transit on the ones. Here's Karen Stewart.
Here's what you need to know about the bridges and tunnels. The Queens-bound Whitestone Bridge has delays mainly on the Queens side. We've got northbound Cross Island Parkway traffic heading to the Bronx-bound span of the Whitestone. And we've got southbound Whitestone Expressways coming up the span Queens-bound onto the Whitestone Expressway and then up from Northern Boulevard to the Grand Central West and into the BQE, which is backed up a little bit, getting up to the getting up into the Grand Central for that RFK delay from back and around Northern Boulevard now. The westbound side of the BQE is delayed from Queens Boulevard to the LIE very heavily, and then not so heavily, but busy nonetheless, from the LIE down to Atlantic Avenue and the inbound Gowanus BQE eastbound combination. It's a really rough trip, pretty much from 86th Street and Tiger Heights up into Atlantic Avenue. Of course, the closer you get to Atlantic, the heavier things are getting. Over at the Hudson River crossings, we've got 40 in at the Lincoln and the George, 50 to 55 inbound at the Holland Tunnel. In New Jersey, the northbound New Jersey Turnpike car lanes at 13 have a crash. The left lane's blocked. And westbound, we're at 280 at exit 15 at exit 15, we've got an accident being reported there. Alternate side of the street is in effect today, citywide. Our next report, 7:51. I'm Karen Stewart, 1010 Wins on 92.3 FM.
Well, as President Biden is set to address the nation tonight, an agreement between Egypt and the U.S. will make it possible for humanitarian aid to start flowing into Gaza. Officials say up to 20 trucks will pass through the Rafah border crossing. As the U.S. received its own intelligence on the explosion at a Gaza hospital, that information also confirms that Israel was not responsible. Rather, an errant rocket from a rocket inside Gaza caused the blast. U.S. focusing on getting those hostages out of there.
The U.S. is working to help get out 500 to 600 Americans stuck inside Gaza. They're helping Israel secure the release of hostages, including 13 unaccounted for Americans. This is a big shift for an administration that wanted to avoid entanglements in the Middle East in order to focus on competition with an aggressive China. But once again, they're forced to focus back on this region.
That's correspondent Margaret Brennan. The president's Oval Office address will be carried live here on 1010 Wins.
If we don't get it, shut it down!
Well, here at home, pro-Palestinian demonstrators marching through Astoria, Queens last night. It was one of the largest pro-Palestinian protests in the city so far. This woman says she joined the rally to stand with her fellow Palestinians and Muslims who've been harassed just because people think they're for the attacks and in support of Hamas.
I have seen an increase in kind of hatred towards Muslims in general because people assume that, all Muslims are correlated with that.
The UJA Federation of New York joined local officials at Dag Hammarskjöld Plaza near the UN, demanding the safe release of those being held hostage by Hamas. And Capitol Hill wasn't without its protests and chaos yesterday. A raucous disturbance led to hundreds of arrests in D.C.
This was a particularly loud and disruptive protest that forced police to shutter many of the entrances on Capitol Hill, some of the roads nearby, and arrest some of those involved who they say didn't follow police instructions. The group called themselves Jews on behalf of Palestinians, calling for peace in the Middle East, but they didn't follow the rules, police say, requiring arrests.
That's correspondent Scott McFarland. We're at 52 degrees, getting up to 66 today. Mostly sunny skies. Going to be a gorgeous fall day. Well, police say they know who the guy is. Now they just have to find him. The guy we're talking about, the suspect who shoved a woman off a subway platform yesterday.
The suspect, 39-year-old Sabir Jones. A photo of him at 1010wins.com as cops are trying to track him down. They say he walked up and randomly shoved this 30-year-old victim right into the passing E-train. About noon yesterday, she smashed her head on the train and then collapsed onto the tracks. Good Samaritans did manage to pull her back up to the platform. Clearly shaken by all this, MTA Chairman Jano Lieber.
New Yorkers are put up with a lot. What they can't put up with is people randomly coming up to them, which appears to be the case here, and attacking them.
Now, Sabir Jones is known to police, and they believe he is mentally ill.
We feel for them, but we need for them to get in treatment and out of the public space.
One Shot 1010 Wins on 92.3 FM, the 5th Avenue 53rd Street station.
Wins News Time, 7:45. You are Jewish. That's the reason one guy gave for punching a woman in the face inside a Manhattan subway station. Police say the 29-year-old woman was walking through a 7-train passageway inside the station at 42nd and Lex last Saturday. This creep walks up to her around 11:30 p.m., punches her in the face. She asked the guy why he attacked her, and he said, "You're Jewish." He took off. She suffered minor injuries. The NYPD Hate Crimes Unit is investigating. They'd love your help in catching this guy. Call Crime Stoppers if you have any information. The family of Natalie Holloway finally getting some closure. The suspect admitting he murdered Holloway in 2005 in Aruba.
Joran Vandersloot is not charged with her death, but as part of a plea deal, he said he and Natalie Holloway were kissing on a beach. She resisted. He kicked her extremely hard in the face, hit her with a cinder block, and later pushed her body out to sea. Holloway's mother, Beth, says it's been a long, painful journey.
We got justice for Natalie.
The 20-year prison sentence runs concurrently with the sentence Vandersloot serving in Peru for killing Stephanie Flores in 2010.
You finally begin to transition from the victim to the victor, and it begins to make the pain and suffering feel somewhat less intense.
The investigation in Aruba of Natalie Holloway's disappearance is still open. I'm Ed Donahue.
In Florida, a GameStop employee has been charged with manslaughter after killing a shoplifter. Police say 33-year-old Derek Guerrero was working at the GameStop store in a Fort Lauderdale strip mall Tuesday night. One guy came in, grabbed 5 boxes of Pokemon cards, ran for the door. Guerrero pulled out a handgun, fired 1 shot, hit the shoplifter in the side. He died 3 hours later at the hospital. 3 pot dispensaries opening in the Big Apple this week. 2 in Manhattan, 1 in Queens. Conbud is the company that owns the latest dispensary to open today on the Lower East Side. CEO Cos Marte was worried there for a minute that the smoke shop may fall through. Marte says he and his partners dished out a lot of cash to get this store ready to roll.
It was a long process, frustrating process. And I can't even tell you what I had to go through, just thinking that I was going to file bankruptcy in the next month. I literally signed a lease for close to $40,000 a month in rent.
Now that they're up and running, Marte hopes to turn this weed business into a very lucrative opportunity. Well, we got some sad news out today that actor Burt Young has died. His manager says Young passed away back on October the 8th.
If I could just unzip myself and step out and be someone else, I want to be you. You're real hot, Rock. That's cool. Now bust this guy's teeth out.
Of course, we grew up watching Young play Rocky's brother-in-law, Paulie. He was nominated for an Oscar in 1977 for Rocky 1.
Now you're not good enough to meet with Gazzo. Boom! That's what I did at Gazzo. Now you're a big shot fighter on the way up. You don't even throw a plum to your friend Paulie.
You want the bird? Go out in the alley and eat the bird. Still my favorite line from that movie. Burt Young starred in over 160 films and TV shows. Miami Vice, The Sopranos, Popu Greenwich Village, just to name a few. Burt Young was 83 years old. Hospitals in the Bronx are getting a $6 million budget now to fight the fentanyl crisis. The funding is set to go to adding beds and updating imaging technology to try and reduce fentanyl overdoses. In 2021, the numbers show that the Bronx has the highest rate of fatal fentanyl ODs in the city. Are we getting burnt out yet on Taylor and Travis? Survey says... We'll hear what they have to say straight ahead.
There's a whole lot of savings going on now at Staples. All right, guys, we're at the 10-minute mark. Don't want to keep you guys too long because I do appreciate the viewership on this Driving in the News documenting history mission. As we sit in a very trafficky area, we'll see you on the next video.